right now. Look at the Wager Talk Live odds screen. I'm seeing Nova minus 8.5, let's call it, total 140.5. What do you want to do with the Musketeers and the Wildcats?
Yeah, always try to kind of bring a little bit of handicapping 101 stuff to the games we talk about here on the show. And I think this one's a good one to talk about for a couple reasons. First of all, I love to look at pace when handicapping college basketball. And that's kind of how you make a short card, in my opinion, especially when you have a large card like Wednesdays and Saturdays now that we're in January. You kind of have to shorten the list as quick as possible. You and I have talked about this over the years, Teddy. And I always like to look at pace matchups where we have a slow team versus a faster team. Now, Villanova is a team that's always played pretty slow half court, but when you do so, you really have to be a good defensive team. And when Jay Wright retired a couple years ago, the defense fell about 100 points in the efficiency rankings that first year without him, and it's why they struggled. Well, the defense is back now at Villanova. In fact, they ranked top 20 out of 360-some teams this year in defensive efficiency. They also rank as one of the 50 slowest teams in the country as pace of play. Contrast that with Xavier, that's a top 80 pace of play team. But what's interesting about Xavier is they're actually the 24th best defense in the country, only 82nd efficiency in offense. So although they play faster, they're also a very good defensive team. So my initial lean in this game is towards Villanova at home. Line open 6.5. I had it right around 6.5, but it has been bet up to 8.5 now. So although I like Villanova, I still lean that way. I think some of the value is gone now with it moving a couple points higher. What's interesting, though, is that the total has also moved a couple baskets higher. It was in the high 137 range or so when it opened. It's now as big as 141 in some locations. I don't quite get why money would come in on Villanova, come in on the over also. As I mentioned, Villanova wants a slower half-court game. I think they will force the tempo at home. That's why I lean towards Villanova. But I like the under, and I like the under more now at 141 with the additional line value. And like I said also, Xavier technically is a better defensive team than they are offensively. So I think their offense struggles on the road in a slower-paced game, which they don't like, but their defense still shows up. So while I like Villanova, I like the under even more in this game, especially that it's risen up to 141 now.
So you talk about side and total being related here. I mean, the two games last year, Nova pulls off the upset at Xavier, 64-63. Game stays 20 points under the total. Xavier wins at Villanova, 88-80 final. The game goes 30 points over, or 20-something points over the total. Is this a scenario where side and total are clearly related? If you're playing under, you're playing the dog. If you're playing the favorite, if you're playing the under, you're playing the favorite. If you're playing the over, you're playing the dog.
Yes, and I think there's a lot of college basketball games where that applies. In fact, I did a solo video, be out later this afternoon here on Wager Talk TV, a little clip of this one, but also the late game between UCLA and Stanford. So I invite everybody to check out Wager Talk TV this afternoon for my solo breakdown of that game. And that's another game in which I think the side and total are correlated. And I kind of give a little handicapping 101 lesson in that game. The parlays normally are sucker bets. 95% of the time, we do not recommend parlays. There's two exceptions. First of all, a 6-point NFL teaser is technically a two-team parlay. You can have an advantage if you cover key numbers with teasers in the NFL. And the other time a parlay does sometimes have an edge is when the side and total are correlated in the same game. And I think in college basketball, you can quite often find that by using pace contrast like we have in this one, where one team wants to play fast and one team wants to play slow. It's not going to always work, but a lot of times when a team gets their preferred pace, it's going to dictate how the game turns out in the total as well. So, yeah, I think it makes sense since Xavier is one of the faster teams and Villanova is one of the slower teams in the nation that under Villanova, Xavier overs would be correlated.